So creating the right variable reward must connect to the internal trigger. So we'll talk about the 4 steps. So the first step is the trigger phase. Now, triggers, there are 2 kinds of triggers. We have internal triggers and we have external triggers. External triggers are all the pings, the dings, the rings, everything in our outside environment. Those are kind of the training wheels for the hook model, right? In order to start using a product before someone is habituated, they have to be reminded to use the product. That's where all the notifications and mailers and anything in your outside environment that can tell you, to prompt you to action. But the ultimate goal of a habit forming product is to no longer require those external triggers. You formed a habit when the user is triggering themselves, right? Imagine how amazing your bottom line would look if you didn't have to spend all that money on advertising and spammy messaging. If people use the product on their own, the way we check Instagram or Amazon or Google, we don't get a notification 90% of the time. And studies have found this 90% of the time we check our phone. It's not because of an external trigger. It's not because of a ping, ding, or ring. That's only 10% of the time. 90% of the time we check our phone is because of an internal trigger. So what is an internal trigger? An internal trigger is an uncomfortable emotional state that we seek to escape. So when we're uncertain, we Google. When we're lonesome, we go on social media. When we're bored, we check the news, we check stock prices, we check sports scores, lots of solutions for boredom, right? So the ultimate goal of every product, health tech, fintech, SaaS products, doesn't matter. Every product fundamentally has to connect itself to an uncomfortable emotional itch. Once you have identified that itch, and it's going to be specific for your customer in their circumstance, right? Because the way I feel when I come home from work is going to be very different from how I feel first thing in the morning. So it's about catering to a specific time and place for a specific user persona that you can identify. And everyone in your company needs to realize that you are in the business of scratching that emotional psychological itch. If you can't tell me the emotion, you're flying blind. You're just hoping to get lucky. Okay. So whether it's uncertainty, fear, loneliness, fatigue, anxiety, stress, you have to be able to articulate that internal trigger. Because if you don't know what is the internal trigger, you cannot create the right variable reward. So to answer your question, the right variable reward is the one that scratches the user's itch and yet leaves them wanting more. So if the internal trigger is loneliness, well, then the product has to connect people together.